No, it's funny. Yesterday was just really amazing. How many of you weren't here yesterday? All of you are invited up on the stage at some point.
At some point.
But we'll get there. Now I got into trouble. This guy told me off yesterday because supposedly I only answered 3 questions. So today I'm going to try to get through a few more of you and answer some of your questions. So
Let's just try.
So the dude at the front, who looks like a mini Crixus. Buddy, what's your question?
Hi there. I want to ask you about the future of Deathstroke, and what do you think about the idea of making a movie for the big screen with Deathstroke, or even a TV show where Slade Wilson will be the main character?
Yeah. You know, I got really excited about where Deathstroke was going in the 2nd season. You know, and they wrote some really powerful stuff. And we got to this point towards the end of the season, and you know, the show's called Arrow. It's not called Deathstroke. And you know, by the time that he and I had come head to head, it was really about making a hero out of Oliver Queen. So you know, when we had that final face-off, you know, at the end of the day, the hero is going to win. So you know, he took Deathstroke down. At that point, the writers, you know, I mean, this is just the way series run. They decided that in order to create and extrapolate more out of the DC universe, they needed to forget about Deathstroke for a while. And, you know, bring up Ra's al Ghul, bring up, you know, Captain Boomerang, a whole bunch of different characters they decided to bring to the show, right? So at that point, I knew I was going to be sort of put over here somewhere. Now, just literally, in all truth, what happens when you get put over there somewhere is that they don't have you on the contract. So what happened was, I got to this point where I was going, well, you know, when are you guys going to use me? And it didn't happen until like episode 14 of the 3rd season. And then it was only for 1 episode. So I was kind of like, well, you know, screw this, I'm going to go work. So I went out and I auditioned for this show, Shannara, in Los Angeles, and those guys offered me a contract. And so now I'm off doing that show. Now, the situation stands that, you know, Andrew Kreisberg, those boys who are writing for Arrow, they want to write more Deathstroke stuff. But right now I'm on a contract to another show. And so now it's about us being able to cross paths, me being able to find a window in Shannara to go and shoot with Arrow again, them finding the right storyline that will suit at that time in the process of the Arrow storyline. So there's a few little things that are going on. But probably at the end of the day, the most important thing is what the fans are saying. You know, the fans are saying we want more Deathstroke, and you tell those boys down in Hollywood to start putting pen to paper, they'll probably end up doing it. So yeah, I can't tell you anything more than that, mate, because honestly, I don't have any more insight into the next piece of storyline for Deathstroke's character. All I know is I'm still on the island. And I said, I keep my promises.
Something more, because I was here yesterday, and I honestly tell you that I've been surprised about how open-minded you are and how you invited all of us on the stage, and I really appreciate if you will invite me right now there, because I want to see what you see. Yeah, can I?
Of course you can, kid. Look, get around there. We're going to go this way. Hey, one rule. Yesterday, when everybody was jumping up here, the guys over here, they're all safety conscious. And I'm like, don't do it. If you come up here, you got to go around the side there. That's the only rule. That big guy there said so.
The guy, just follow the guy in the yellow suit. They're showing you the way.
What is he going to do when he gets up here? Hey, mate, why are you coming up here? Is this a ploy? You're not like Oliver Queen's little cousin or something, are you? You came up here to take a selfie? Okay, everybody in the back. There you go, kid. You want to sit there? Sit there. Would you like my phone? Are you going to hang around with me for a while? Security. You just hang there. Hey, buddy.
Hey again. I wanted to ask, working on the sets of Spartacus and Arrow, etc., do you have any interesting stories with the various props you encountered?
Yeah, I got some interesting stories, yeah. Yeah, like, you know, the eye patch, right? You're reduced to having like 50% of your vision. Okay, so all of a sudden, I can't see those guys over there, right? So when I'm acting in a Slade patch, I have to be aware that as I move, I'm not aware of anything that's over there. So in one particular scene, you know the scene where I kidnapped Oliver's sister, Thea?
Yeah.
And then they took me to the police station. And I told him some cockamamie story about swimming from the island. Who remembers that episode? Did you really believe that story about me swimming from Leanne Yu back to the United States?
No.
I know, but that was meant to be true. And I read it in the script and I said, guys, come on, really? And they were like, yeah. The Mirakuru, you know, you were like, And so, you know, so I had that little scene, and then as I walked out of the police station, there was a whole bunch of reporters outside. And I was like, I offer $50,000 to whoever can offer information leading to the finding of Thea Queen. And then I went, and the guy who was playing the extra, or the limo driver, had the door open like this. And I knew he was really nervous. He was kind of a nervous guy. He was like this guy. It was like, are you going to trust him with the timing at the door? But I didn't think about it. And so I did this speech, and then all of a sudden I just turned around and I just went to jump into the back seat of the car, of this limousine. And this guy, I think he was just trying to, I think he'd been sitting there going like, I'm going to close it like this. I'm going to close it like this. And I think, like, when I launched myself to go into the back door, he wasn't even looking, and he closed it. And the corner of the door, as I left with all my body weight, went straight into my eye. Like, seriously, like, you know, that old eye patch could have just been permanent. Because I seriously, I rolled over in the back seat and I was like, oh, fuck, Jesus Christ. And it was funny because all the sort of guys who were playing the press outside were filming lights in the back seat, and I was going, no, I flipped my eye up. But they sort of took me out of the car, and I had like a really big blood blister on my eye for about a week. So that was interesting. Another time was when I, when I was holding, what's her name, the blonde-haired girl? Felicity, yeah. Remember when I was holding her around the throat in the final episode?
Yeah.
And she, like, because Deathstroke really doesn't have fast enough reflexes, right? She jabbed me in the neck with the syringe. Well, the first time she did that, she just went bang. She went bang, and she hit me right in the lip, and she split it open. And like everybody thought it was hilarious, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting there with bleeding lip going. I guess you at some stage now. But that was kind of like, you know, these little unexpected things that do happen on set. I mean, they're fun, you know. I mean, we have fun on all these shows. You got to understand, like, it's a weird thing that you guys, you know, if you really wanted to know what it was like on set, it's just like hanging out with your friends. Honestly, there's no, I mean, there's some demands involved in television and filmmaking that's about dollars. It costs a lot of money, every minute, every hour, whatever. If you go to the toilet, we estimated that if you go to the toilet, it costs $10,000. Seriously, like if I'm on set and I say, hey listen guys, I'm going to go to the toilet, I'm really saying, hey guys, can I just cost you $10,000? Seriously, it's a real time pressure thing, but yeah, look, Spartacus was, you know, it was one of these series that just was involved. I I don't know. I've never been in a show where there's been so much commitment to actually pulling off, especially the physical scenes. You know, I mean, I did all my own stunts and all the fighting. And in New Zealand, we have a completely different scenario to America and Canada. In that you guys will, if it gets dangerous at all, they'll pull in a stunt guy. But in New Zealand, we have this thing called EECC, which is like the way that the medical coverage is within a workplace. And it means that producers aren't responsible for anything that happens. So you could get your head cut off, which happened to me eventually. Something could happen to you, and they would only pay you a certain amount of money from the government. You can't turn around and you can't sue the producers for an injury or anything like that. So they're like, oh yeah, whatever, yes, same pictures out there, yeah. And you go out and you do all the stunts. But I love that. I really love the opportunity, because once I got to Canada and started shooting on Arrow, which I was very unfamiliar with, they started pulling me out in fight scenes. And I'm going, okay, the stunt guy's coming in now. I was going, what? It's just getting exciting. I'm good at this. Come on, let me do it. But that, you know, it's a different safety standard and a different kind of union with the stunt guys. Anyway, I think I answered your question. Thank you.
So I hear that you're
I'm just going to go to the bathroom for a second.
a real tough guy, you know. Hey, tough guy, come here. I got a question for you. So, you know, you play and you do these stunts and you show your nipples and all that stuff. What I'd like to know is, I heard this rumor when we were down in Australia together that you, Mr. Tough Guy, were in this shark cage and you peed your wetsuit because you were so upset about the sharks. You want to talk about sharks for a minute?
Oh yeah, that's right. Let's go to about 6 hours before. I was in a convention in Australia, and you know, one of the wonderful things about going to whatever town, teabag. Would anybody like me to teabag?
I don't know what that is.
But listen, right? So a bunch of guys went, well, you know what goes on in this town, like in this area? They have shark diving with great white pointers. It was on the south of Australia. It's called the Great Australian Bight for obvious reasons. So we're all these boys are going like, yeah, let's go dive with the sharks. Let's go dive with the sharks. I went up to Robert and I said, hey, Rob, we're going to go diving with the sharks, dude. Are you coming? Are you coming? And you know what he said? I got to ask my wife.
I admit it. No.
No, but to be honest, from my heart, I'm telling you guys, this guy is one of my favorite actors of all time. And then you would come here and have a joke with me during Q&A's, brother. It's the highlight of the whole thing, man.
No, but you know what, the reason I ask you that is because you have a real life experience that can inform your life as an actor. I mean, he really was he didn't pee his pants, by the way, I just made that up. He showed me the video footage. You were in the tank where you hear, dun, dun, and this thing comes, describe that feeling of this thing coming right at you and going,
yeah, well, have any of you ever dived with sharks? Oh, you've done it, brother. Yeah, this guy's kind of cool. Well, honestly, who's seen Jaws? Hey, are there white pointers in like the Black Sea?
No.
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 Are sturgeons kind of scary? Like the sturgeons come out? No, okay. So anyway, if you've ever seen, you know, Jaws and put yourself in that position, you get out the back of this boat and you drop into this cage, and like all of a sudden this goes, and then you can hear yourself going. And you look at your mates and you go, you're in this cage and suddenly this thing comes out of nowhere. And it's the scariest thing on the planet. I'm telling you, I mean, yeah.
He's the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that.
Hey, thanks, brother. Cheers, brother. I love you, brother. I love you. Hey, listen. My scooter's out the back. My scooter is out the back, and you can take it back. And while if you take that, can you take him as well? Robert. See you, brother. Love you, mate. Now, seriously, what really blows me away? I'm like you guys. When I see a guy like that, I'm like, holy cow! I think he's a good actor, man. He's him and like he reminds me of like Al Pacino and these great actors. He's freaking amazing. Next up.
Hi Manu, I was here.
But I sit at the back with him and he's like, in my Q&A, man, they just keep on asking me about teabag. And I don't want to talk about fucking teabag no more. He's so classic. Okay, bro, shoot.
Yeah, I was here as well yesterday, and I didn't get to ask you this question. I guess everybody knows about that photo of you on the beach, naked on a white horse. I want to know the story behind that photo.
I was rehearsing, I was warming up for my wag. I was getting ready for Arzog to be sitting on his giant white wolf. Now, who's seen that photo? Oh, not many people, huh? I'm safe. No, no, you know what? I met this photographer, right? Who was a shit hot photographer, right? Excuse my language if there's any kids around here. But he was a shit hot photographer, right? And he was like, dude, I'm gonna get a photo of you on the beach, naked on a white horse. Okay. Yeah, man. I get it all sorted out, okay. So a couple of days later, we meet up and we go down really early in the morning, like crack of dawn, the sun's not even up, right? We get down there, we meet this woman who's like, she looks like Xena, and she came out, she goes, yeah, here's the horse, we groomed him for you already. And they brought this horse out, and my friend didn't realize it was a really beautiful big horse with a white mane and everything, but it had really short legs. And one funny thing about that photo is that the legs on the horse are photoshopped to make it look bigger. Because really, when I was sitting on it, my feet were almost touching the ground. Nothing else was altered at all. And that wasn't the horse's junk either. No, but here I am sitting on this horse, right? And when they took that photo, that exact photo, right? I'm sitting on this thing. And it was a little bit, I could tell this horse had something going on its head. It had a weird look in one eye. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm stark naked, bro. And I'm on the back of this thing and it's like, I don't know, have you ever sat on one of those rugs that's made out of like Hessian fur? Yeah. And you feel like you're going to get a splinter? I'm sitting on the back of this horse, not really that comfortable. But, trying to do the old. Is that good? Yeah, exactly. The steel look. Blue steel look. I'm doing the blue steel look. And suddenly this horse just took off. And I grabbed its mane and I'm just going. And I'm bounced on this horse. What it was that the horse carriage was up in the car park. And this horse just decided it wanted to go home. It didn't want to be there anymore, but I'm on top of it, right? And so I'm riding up over this sand dune, holding onto this horse. And this man and this woman came walking over the hill with these two kids to walk out this beach. And I was, hey kids, this is Mirabai Beach. What the? Oh, Jesus. interesting moment in my life.
Jesus Christ.
And so the funny thing is when anybody asks me about, am I embarrassed about that photo? You know, I know that photo, I've seen it. I think you didn't see what happened 10 years later. Because if someone had got that on YouTube, it would have got a lot of hits. And some of it got a lot of hits anyway. Cheers, brother. Thanks for bringing that up. If you want to know what it is, look up Manu, Bennett horse. Google it and you'll see it. It's a white horse.
Hi Manu.
Hey bro.
I would just like to say first of all, if you remember the guy from the first guy I asked you about the hacker. So right over there.
Oh yeah, my mate, my chief. Yeah. You guys. Are you going to get up again and help us out again today? I want you to lead the other guys with me. I'll tell you what. Are we getting there? Are we getting there? You just come up. You come up. You're going to go around this way, bud. We'll get to him. Is that all you got?
No. So my question is, I was wondering if you could describe, I don't know how many people know this story, the incident that occurred during your audition for Arrow.
Who knows what happened when I auditioned for Arrow?
Choke it!
Oh, really? That's it?
So no.
Okay, listen. Okay, come up here. You got to go around that way.
Keep on the hug.
Okay. First of all, what happened, I was finishing up on Spartacus, and the US military, you know, any military actually, any military in the world are big fans of Spartacus. I guess it's the brotherhood story, I guess it's the battle, you know, the battling, the actual death that occurs, and the, you know, brothers are able to unite and get through those moments, those tragedies. That was all part of Spartacus, and I think the military just identified with it, right?
Sorry, we're looking at the white horse.
Oh, that's the white horse. Yeah, that's it. And anyway, so we got invited over to like Afghanistan, like when it was pretty full on, you know. And we got invited there, and we made it only as far as Kuwait, but. And then something was going on up there, and we were meant to get flown up in Black Hawk helicopters, and you know, then they actually stopped that leg because something full on was going on, and they said, no, you got to stay in Kuwait. But we got to meet all these American military guys, and I met this. I went around, I kept on going around going like, who's the badass here? You know, who's the guy that's seen the most action? I wanted to know. As an actor, I wanted to meet some guy who had that sort of credential. And they introduced me to this guy called Knight. It was this older guy, bald older guy, but he just had this, he had this very, very relaxed stare. But if you looked into his eyes, it was quite full on. There was a lot going on. And I started talking to Knight about stuff that, you know, he had to do. And we're having a chat about the way they have to enter villages. And dogs bark, and they get snipers, they've got to knock the dogs out, and they've got to go in there, and they've got to take guys out. And I said, when you go in and you've got to do that sort of work, you know, getting in there quietly, like, what do you do? And he said, well, you know, we've got to go up behind guys, and we've got to break their necks, put them in chokeholds, and choke them out, and stuff like that. And so I said, well, what do you mean? Like, show me. And so he got me in this chokehold, right? And we were in front of about 50 other soldiers. And I think everybody wanted to see Knight take out Crixus. And he wanted to as well. And so he put me in this chokehold, and he, as soon as he started applying pressure on my Adam's apple here, I just started going. I could feel it. It happens very quickly. And my immediate reaction was to grab his balls. And I swear to you, I grabbed his freaking balls as hard as I could. He actually told me that for 2 days they were numb. Because it was a survival thing. I was like, but I was, you know, I mean, it does. It starts switching you off very quickly. During that particular trip as well, they gave me some 5-hour energy drink. because, you know, the soldiers, if they get caught in any sort of, you know, long fight, if they start to fatigue, these things could save you because they'll give you an alertness for a period of time again. So they've got a lot of this stuff in their kits. And because I had a bit of jet lag, having flown from New Zealand to Kuwait, these boys were giving me these 5-hour energy drinks to go around and do these chants. When I left the country, they all came and saw me off at the airport. These boys were champions, these special forces boys. And I really felt, you know, a great connection with them. They gave me their medal. You know, I got a couple of the medals that the soldiers hand out, these little coins. And I left really connected to these boys. Then I arrived in Los Angeles, and I was only there for 3 days because I had to go back and do the Hobbit premiere in New Zealand. And I was there for just a couple of days, and I did a couple of meetings, and on the last day, my flight was like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got a phone call at 10 a.m. from my agent saying, Manu, do you want to go and audition for this show before you go to the airport? And I was like, well, I got to be at the airport like in 4 hours. She went, yeah, it's called Arrow. And you know what stood out most about when she said that to me? Was that Stephen Amell had flown to New Zealand and auditioned for Spartacus. Stephen Amell was one of the 3 actors that were flown over to audition to replace Andy Whitfield. But Liam McIntyre got that role. And I remember seeing him on the posters when I was in Los Angeles, going, oh, that's that guy. Right, okay, wow, he's got that show. And suddenly this phone call came in and I was like, you know, going to audition for it. And I was like, hey, sure, okay, I'll go now. Okay, so I threw my suitcase in because I was going to the airport. I went to this particular, you know, audition studio in Hollywood. And I walked in, it was like this actually. And all the boys were standing there going, because it was this military role, and all these guys were like going through the lines and they were all walking around like, and it was this really tense kind of room, because everybody wanted to be Slade Wilson. These characters were all these guys were sitting there. And I actually felt really, you know, it was one of the most cold rooms that I ever came into. Because everyone was trying to get into this really dark military mindset, or this, you know, this intense character. And I actually didn't feel that energized. I felt a bit flat. And then I suddenly realized that Night had given me a 5-hour energy drink. And I swear to you, when I was in my audition for Arrow, I was on Mirakuru. I went into the bathroom and I chugged this thing down. And within about a minute, I was like... I walked out, I saw the guys like... And then they gave me the sides. I hadn't even seen the script. And the script said... And his name wasn't Slade Wilson. I didn't know it was Slade Wilson Deathstroke until I got to Vancouver. It was something like Billy. Right? And it was like Billy drops down. Who remembers the first scene that Slade Wilson ever appeared in? He dropped through the ceiling of the plane. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he grabbed Oliver around the throat in a chokehold.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like starting to buzz on my Mirakuru, right? And a 5-hour energy drink and it goes chokehold. And I went, Night, show me that chokehold. And it all became very real for me all of a sudden. You know, I was reading a Special Forces guy. I was flashing back to these guys in Kuwait, Afghanistan, these guys that I'd met, and I started to get a real feeling of having just spent this couple of weeks with these guys. And suddenly I felt like getting it real, getting it really real. And so when it was my turn to get called into the studio, I heard a couple of guys and I was going like, it was funny because I heard guys and I was going like, no, he's not going to get it. Because I was listening through the door. I did like a guy would be going like, you know, you got 10 seconds to tell me something, I'm going to get out of your throat box. He hasn't got it. Well, you'd hear, you know, I was waiting to hear the signal and I couldn't hear the signal coming through. I just couldn't hear it. And so when I got in there was this reader. If you stand over there and you pretend to be the camera operator, right, and the director. So the director sort of says to me, okay, you ready? You ready for your read? And I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm ready. And I was like buzzing. Yeah, I'm ready. I said, mate, do you mind? Is he going to stand behind the camera?